And before we get started, I'll just give a little introduction as to who we are and what we're all doing here. My name is Natasha Phipps. I am one of the co-team leaders of the Phipps and Tessier Real Estate Group. And this evening is really exciting because we focus in the investment space here in Calgary. We offer residential, commercial, and property management services. But we look at everything, even for first-time home buyers, with an investment lens. I always say when we're first-time home buyer shopping, this could be your future investment property or your future rental property. And so I may jump in here and there with a bit of like investor sort of mindset or insight as these speakers go along, but I'm not going to be delivering most of the content here this evening. Um, we have a full lineup of speakers here, so we are going to jump right in. We do host events like this approximately every month or so, and we always pick a different topic. And if you do want to review any of our old socials that we do, they are available on our YouTube channel that's called Calgary Real Estate Investing. And we're going to start bringing more content for the average consumer, but with that investment lens. So tonight is a really good example of that. So what are we doing tonight over the next hour? What's our agenda? As I just mentioned, what we do here at the Phipps and Tessier Group, we are based in Calgary with CIR Realty. And tonight we're going to cover a few things. One, we're going to do a Calgary market update by Erin. I'm joined this evening by several members of the team, which I'll introduce here on the next slide in a moment. And then we are going to hear from Josh on our team talking about what does Erin's market update mean for first-time home buyers and how can you kind of use that knowledge, use that data, and use it to your advantage as a first-time home buyer. And then we have a very special guest this evening talking on the mortgage and financing side of things. We have Kevin Tessier here who's going to present on what you need to know when you're going into your first home purchase. It can be a little daunting, and I think breaking it down step by step and into pieces can really help a great deal and also help you be prepared for that. And then, last but certainly not least, we're going to hear about what's going on in the Canmore market. I think we all love Canmore if you love Calgary, and the Canmore market is its own set of everything. It is a really special market that is worth considering for obviously lifestyle reasons, but also maybe you'll want to make Canmore home as well. So we're going to hear from Sean based in Canmore and give us kind of a Canmore market update. And at the very end, any Q&A you have, happy to have like open dialogue, but through the evening as well, put your text questions in the chat if there is anything that you want to have us address. And with that, we will get started. Really briefly, we don't have the entire team with us here tonight, but almost all of us. And we have a group kind of spread through Calgary, Cochrane, and Canmore. So myself and Andrea there at the top. We have Heather, who's based in Harmony out in Springbank. Erin, who's with us here this evening. I'm sure she'll tell us a little bit more about herself. And Dax is in the very center. Sean is from Canmore. You're going to hear from him as well. Marilyn's our specialist out in Cochrane. Una's our property manager. And then Josh here, you're going to hear from as well this evening. So a good chunk of the team here tonight. We're all here to help you with whatever you might need in your home buying and selling journey. And yeah, really excited to hear all of them present this evening. So up very first is Erin is going to give us a market update. And Erin, I'm just going to like highlight your
my little
there
spot.
you go. Yeah, I'm going to spotlight you there for we can all see you. So thank you so much, Erin. Take it away.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. Well, thanks for coming tonight. Like Natasha said, I'm one of her realtors on the team. I primarily focus on inner city, as well as the west side and the northwest side of Calgary, just because I live pretty central in Calgary. So, yeah, like I said, thanks for being here. Before we get into Kevin talking about financing and Josh talking about what to expect with the sorry, with
Buying process.
buying process and Sean talking about Canmore, I am going to talk about what is actually happening in Calgary and give you guys a fast little snapshot of the market and what's actually happening right now because everything you've heard on the news in or what you're hearing in the news right now is the market's crashing, the sky is falling, or you're also hearing the market's booming, and none of that actually tells you what's really true for the home that you're actually trying to buy. And so we're gonna tell you the real story of what's happening. So this last May, because this is the most accurate data that we have, so this is all straight from the Calgary Real Estate Board. There was 607 or 6,752 units. This is very much in line with what happened last May, but still 11% above the long-term average for this time of year. So we're up in listings. We have a plethora of listings. With that said, sales are much lower than they were. We're 11% above the long-term average for this time of year. Um, I'm just looking at my notes here. Sales were 16% lower than we were last year. That's what I meant to say. So people are buying less, and sales are happening a lot slower. And the benchmark price sits at 570,500. So it's a bit up a bit from January, but still, 3% below where we were last May. So overall, we're seeing more inventory come on the market, less sales, and prices are starting to soften a little bit. Um, but let's put that together and here's the headline. So the overall market has shifted to balance. So not a free-for-all for buyers and not a feeding frenzy for sellers. Balanced. That's the most room you've had
Good.
to breathe in this market in years. So like really since 2024, let's say. So
Yeah.
it's good. It's good for buyers. You
And
get a little bit of space.
just to add one thing to this stat, because this is what you'll see in the news where it says sales are 16% lower than the same time last year, and that can seem like a big number. However, if you look at a 10-year historical average, that's still above the 10-year average. So in real estate, it's like you can see these like news things and it makes it seem misleading to what is actually going on. So looking at a longer period of time also can be good. But then like Aaron said, what does that mean for me as a buyer? That's really great because now we're in that balanced market condition and not a, panic where you can't take your time. So,
The
sorry.
sky's not falling.
No, not at all.
That's like the one thing that the
And
news loves to say.
well, and it is a very different climate in Calgary. If you're in different markets, it is a very different world. And even within Calgary, as Aaron's going to talk about here, there's a lot of variance. So just
Mhm.
being really like data driven when you're thinking about what's actually happening with the market is important.
So, as the title of this one says, is it's not one market, it's four. Calgary, it varies depending on where you are at in the city. It's Calgary's market isn't one thing. It's four completely different conversations depending on what you're buying and the area that you're buying. So let's look at detached homes. So detached homes had a benchmark price of 7,004, sorry, 700,000, 747,800, and only 2.5 months of supply. So that's really tight. Conditions are balanced, but they're still leaning towards sellers in some areas, and I'll get to that later on. With semi-detached, so we're talking like duplexes, your benchmark price is 691,100 with 3 months of supply, which is generally balanced. Row townhomes, prices have come, they're at 422,300. It is down about 6% from last year and a little over 3 months of supply. So easing towards that more balanced market. So we'll talk more about that later. Apartments and condos. So this is where things start to shift a lot. So we're looking at a benchmark price of 300,400 with 5 months of supply. 5+ months of supply, not just 5 months, but we're over that. So that's a buyer's market, full stop. So yeah, I guess before anyone tells you what the market is doing, ask them which market, because detached and condo are basically playing different sports right now. It's like we're looking at soccer and we're looking at hockey.
Yeah. Just to define what months of supply mean, if if no new listing came on the market in the detached sector, it would take 2.5 months to work through all the supply at what pace things are selling right now. So there's a lot of stats when you look at real estate, but honestly, the most important thing to look at is months of supply in a given area. You can kind of like look at the other things if you want to, but those are the most important number in my opinion. But that's all it means is just how long it could take. And it obviously really varies, like Aaron said, all across the city here.
Mhm. So this next slide, and Natasha and I will touch on this at the very end of it. So, there is a spotlight on apartments and condos. And yes, there is a lot of opportunity in the condo sector, but um, there's a lot of nuances when it comes to buying condos. So it's something that you want to be very cautious about when entering because in Calgary, they're the first to heat up, and then they're also the first to cool down. And when they cool down like hard. Um, Prices drop drastically, and it's really hard to get rid of them when the opportunity presents itself for you to move up into your next home. So use a lot of caution when buying condos. So like I said, there's a lot of opportunity here. So sales to new listings ratios in condo market is 42%. So anything under about 55% means buyers are calling the shots. Months of supply, like I said in the last slide, are 5+. Sellers are competing for you, not the other way around, and prices are down 9% year over year. That's a real discount.
Mhm.
So and again, another caveat with this is location still matters even inside this opportunity. So anything in the Northeast, the North, so like suburbia, East, districts are seeing double-digit declines. The Northwest is still holding the best, only down about 6%. So condo isn't like the whole strategy, which condo where is.
Mhm.
But again, like I said, be very careful when buying condos because they're not a lot of fun to sell right now.
Well, and just so condos are the most volatile part of the market everywhere. This isn't just a Calgary issue. If you bring up condos in Toronto right now, it's much
Vancouver
much
even, yeah.
worse. It's
Yeah.
much worse. But the reason they're so volatile, and if you're a first-time buyer, they can be attractive because they're affordable. You don't need to worry about maintenance, and it's a good price point. But the problem and why they're volatile is because they go up quick. You can put up 200 units in Calgary in a matter of 18 months. And so it's a great product to adjust to supply and demand for builders, but then
Mm,
you just need to be very aware of that. If you're gonna buy into condos, you want to buy in the down, not the up. So that is what Aaron's highlighting here is that it is the down right now, and it likely will still continue to come down this year. And you have the negotiating power to even negotiate that in your offer. But that's why it's volatile. It's not necessarily that there's something inherently wrong with condos. It's just that you can put a lot of them in one piece of land. And so all of a sudden the supply and demand metrics can be adjusted quite quickly in the market. And then it just takes time to recover and then the demand will go up again one day and it'll do the same thing. So as long as
yeah.
you're aware of that, that's all.
Yeah. And if you want a condo, like I said, just like be very mindful of location because we also have that great opportunity in Tizza Park that maybe we can
Yeah.
touch on, which is a great opportunity because of the location itself. So, you know, condos there that is a condo that I would say would be something that maybe if you're looking to buy one, I would look into that project. So, and we can chat about that later, but yeah. So, location still drives the deal. So again, going back to that location kind of idea, same story does still show up even in detached homes. So look at the spread within just one property type. Um, the West District is a seller's market, and that is genuinely still like the west side of Calgary, like the Springbank, the um,
Aspen.
Aspen, like those. Cougar Ridge are areas in which we still tend to see multiple offers happening, and those properties go really, really, really fast,
Hmm.
and supply tends to be quite low. Prices have held steady year over year. However, go to the opposite side of the city and you go to the northeast side, it's very much a buyer's market. Prices are down 7%. They've got a whole bunch of new product flooding the market. Same city, same week, completely different negotiating position depending on which side of town you're looking at. There's good news buried in here too. So year-to-date sales are actually up for homes under 600,000. So if you're flexible on neighborhood, there's real opportunity at the entry level price point.
Hmm.
Um,
Sorry.
the takeaway for you is don't assume
Sorry,
all
is that too early?
no, it
Apologies.
kind of fits into it.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
um, yeah, I've got a couple more notes to talk about here. So yeah, the takeaway for you is don't assume all of Calgary is one price tag. Northwest and West tend to hold value best long term. Northeast and East have the most aggressive deals, but you really need to think about resale before you jump at a discount. Tell us your budget and we'll show you exactly what that buys street by street. So, what does this mean if you're buying in 2026? So, let's zoom out. We went from a seller's market in 2022 through to 2024 to balanced overall today. It's a bit of whiplash, with apartment condos specifically tipped into buyer's market territory. Why? That's the biggest question, is because cost of living concerns are slowing migration into the city, which means less competition for you as a local buyer, which is great. There's more supply coming from new builds and rentals giving buyers alternatives. And sellers are adjusting their expectation because, well, they have to. The market is on your side right now more than it's been in years. You guys as buyers, like if you're a buyer right now, you have room to breathe, and room to make decisions. So yeah, we're here to make it work for you. So four things that we want you to remember is that it's a balanced overall market, means more choice and less panic. Apartment condos are a real legitimate buyer's opportunity right now. So if that is something that you're interested in, like we're not going to steer you away, but we're going to definitely steer you in the right location.
Right direction.
And then location, location, location. It's the cheesiest House Hunters. I don't know if you guys, anybody here watched House Hunters, but it was like
It's
always
true.
location, location, location. It is like cliche, but so
Yeah.
true, and you want to listen to that.
You
Um,
can't change the dirt.
Exactly. So it still drives that deal. So let the data guide your search instead of assumptions. And step one, for all of it is, well, and Josh is going to go over this, get pre-approved, and then come talk to us about exactly what that unlocks. So Josh is going to talk about all of that next. So I don't want to talk about anything about the process. Um, but yeah, that's what I have to tell you about what's going on in Calgary. You're
Awesome. Thank you, Erin.
welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Josh, where are you? Oh, there you are.
Right here. Yeah.
Place. There we go. Okay, awesome. Thank you, Erin. All right, here we go.
Okay. Yeah. So my
Here we
name's
go.
Josh, and I'm just gonna kind of be going over a little bit more about the process, just because as a first-time home buyer, it is quite confusing and a little bit overwhelming, right? So I think
Mhm.
it makes sense for us to kind of break that down and exactly at each step what you need to be doing to get the process rolling here. So I think honestly the most important thing before you go and even start looking at anything is you need to get pre-approved, just like Aaron said. And Kevin's going to talk a little bit more about this as well, I'm sure. But the reason for that is if you're not pre-approved and you don't know kind of what your budget is, you might be looking at something that's way out of budget, or you might actually have a little bit more room to work with than you think. And so figuring that out right away is going to be really, really important. And you need to also start to consider, kind of what you're comfortable affording, and not just necessarily spending the entire budget right up front. And you need to be factoring in like your lifestyle into that kind of stuff too, right? Because now you're you're taking on the extra cost of home ownership, and that's great and all, but you need to kind of consider as well what kind of life you want to live like going forward as well, and as if you can still afford that, and if you can, then great. And you're gonna also want to start looking at the different neighborhoods that you like, because the city's so big now. It can get a little overwhelming when you have kind of every neighborhood in your search. And so I think it really, really helps. And I always find it helps people to kind of narrow it down to, maybe like 2 to 3, maybe 4 neighborhoods, kind of a central area that you like. And then you can start going from there and keep the search going there.
So,
So just talking a little bit more about the search. So this is kind of the beginning of the process that we like to go through. So I always get everyone set up on an auto search, so then I can see what's going on, as well as you guys are getting all the new listings coming in as well. And then from there we can kind of start to narrow down the search a little bit more. So what things are like really important to you? Do you want a garage that can be detached, or is it going to be attached? Number of bedrooms, bathrooms, kind of your lot direction, and all those kinds of things. It can be, again, a little overwhelming, but if you kind of sit down and really think about what sort of stuff you actually want, we can then start to filter that out through the search, and then it becomes a lot easier to see. And immediately there might not be the perfect property for you right away, but if you got everything in line, then you just got to be a little bit more patient, and eventually something will come up. But yeah, just having all that stuff predefined before we go shopping is always the best there.
it's a really good tip. The other thing is when you like define this for your realtor, they may have an idea that you haven't quite thought of yet, right? Like they might have seen
Hmm.
something or someone else that they've worked with has a similar, list, and there might be something that you haven't quite thought of yet. So sharing all those things with us helps a great deal.
Yeah, absolutely. And so now that we've kind of figured out what you like, and we're starting to do some showings. I find just looking at photos is doesn't tell the whole story at all. It can either be worse or better, hopefully. But especially nowadays, there's a lot of the like AI staging and that kind of stuff, and you can be like, "Wow, this house looks so nice," and then you go, and it can be sometimes a little bit disappointing, and you're see kind of what it's actually like. So getting in and actually seeing the house is extremely important, obviously. And as we're walking through the house, I usually like to kind of look at all the little details, look past the staging, look at the ceilings. Is there any water stains? Kind of paint and patch repairs have they been doing? Like, are they trying to hide anything? Or is it just kind of, like some refresh with the paint and that kind of stuff, which is fine too. But, and then one thing I think that, a lot of people aren't really aware about, especially first time home buyers, is poly B plumbing. So this is kind of found in houses from around the 1970s into like the late 1990s. And it's just a type of piping that has a tendency to burst suddenly. And so that's kind of been, a thing that has been in Calgary homes for a while now. And it's just very common. So it's something to be aware of in those older homes. Checked out. Sometimes there can be some um, insurance issues with that as well. They don't really like having poly B in some of the homes there. So just being aware of that. It's not the end of the world if it has it, but something to be aware of there.
Yeah, that's a good tip.
Okay, so now that you have found the house that you want to put an offer in, um, there's obviously a lot to the offer, but I think there's kind of three main things that you want to kind of be aware of, and I think are the most important parts of it. Is your deposit. So your deposit, you're going to want to have that in cash, pretty much ready to go, pretty accessible, and so that will kind of range from 2 to 5% of the purchase price. 5% is usually like quite high. Like more like 2 to 3% is pretty reasonable, depending on the property and also just the market conditions at the time and your conditions. So your conditions are kind of your safety blanket here. So basically, your condition period is usually about 2 weeks long, kind of plus or minus a little bit depending on what needs to be done. And so with that, you can have a financing condition. So basically, you'll be working with your mortgage broker or your bank, whoever you have your finance kind of lined up with, and you're going to be giving them enough time to review everything. I think Kevin probably will talk about that a little bit more, and make sure that everything is good to go. And then your home inspection, this is something that, of course, we always recommend to do, especially as your first time home buyer. Basically, you're going to have an inspector come in, do a really big deep dive into the house and find basically every little flaw that they possibly can. And sometimes it comes back and it seems like, oh man, like this is a big long report. There's so many things that are wrong with it, but that's not necessarily the case. They're going to be really, really nitpicky and kind of pick out every little detail. So don't get overwhelmed if it's, a little bit longer than you were expecting at first. And your condo document review. So this is obviously just if you're buying into a property that has, a condominium board association on there. And so basically you're going to be able to review the financial data and everything about the condominium board. And so with all these three things, basically, if you don't like anything that comes up, you're able to walk away from the deal and get your deposit back. And it's your safety blanket and you're doing your due diligence before you actually want to move forward with the purchase. And then your possession. So possession is negotiable. You can kind of go back and forth with what works with you, what works with the seller, and just kind of figure out, when you want to take possession of the property there and what works best for all parties.
Awesome. Kevin, did you want to say something?
Yeah,
Okay.
I just wanted to clarify one thing. Um, just for people, the deposit and the down payment are similar but slightly different.
Mm-hmm.
So the deposit you would have ready when you do the offer. You typically need to give it within, I don't, you guys put it in the offer, but usually it's like 2 or 3 days
Yeah.
of the offer being accepted. The down payment is, however you're putting down 5, 10, 15, 20%. That money you would need ready by the time you go to the lawyer. The deposit is typically part of your down payment. So you that stays in your down payment, but
Yeah.
you need the down payment once you go to the lawyer. The deposit you need pretty much as soon as you put the offer in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely.
Good, good clarification. The other thing I was going to mention too, just to be very clear, is your deposit is usually given, like Kevin said, within a couple of days of an offer. It is held in trust, generally speaking, with the listing brokerage's company. So they hold the money in trust, and then it becomes part of your transaction. Like Kevin was going to say, if you move forward, if you do, you don't get your financing, you're not happy with the home inspection or the condo document review, and you do not waive your conditions, that means you did not buy the property, you did not move forward, the deposit is refunded back to you. But the deposit at beginning is important to have ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, like something you want to make sure it's accessible, like Josh said, because we've had that come up many times where it's like, oh, it's actually locked into an investment or something, and then it takes you much longer than you think it will to get it out.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, that's all good points there. Okay, so now we're kind of getting to the home stretch here, and we're going to be taking possession hopefully in the next little bit. And then one thing that I think is always good to have, and I like to always put in as a pre-possession walkthrough. So basically, this is before you're taking possession of the property. We're all going to walk through, make sure that everything is taken care of. So, say anything came back on the home inspection that we wanted to get repaired or replaced, making sure that that actually was done properly and it's up to the satisfaction. Um, and so this kind of your final, I guess, chance to look through everything, make sure you're happy with anything, and if something wasn't done properly, that's you get to bring that up to the lawyers, and there's usually will be like a holdback or something like that put in place, a certain amount of money. If something wasn't completed, then they deal with that as necessary. And then funds are usually released. That they are released on possession day, usually around noon. Um, I have had some instances where it takes a little bit longer, and
Mhm.
so I usually like to say, don't book, your internet hookup or your movers for 1 o'clock that day because it can be really, really stressful. I had it one time where it took a little bit longer and it was very stressful.
Yeah.
So I learned
Moving
from that.
trucks are waiting.
Yeah, I learned from that like kind of right off the bat, and I was like, okay, I'm
Yeah.
not gonna tell people to have everything lined up ready to go the day of. Enjoy it, start moving in some boxes on your like by yourself and that kind of stuff. But yeah, get everything set up for the following day. I feel like that's usually the best way to go about it if you can do that at least.
Yeah. That's really good advice.
Okay, so with all this information now, and then I also kind of want to like what Aaron was saying, just kind of give you a little bit more advice and things to pay attention to, particularly right now. So as Aaron was kind of mentioning, there's a lot more days on market for a lot of these properties, and so typically that gives you a little bit more negotiating room, which is really nice. Usually, right now is what we're seeing is if a property is priced incorrectly, it'll sit for quite a bit longer. And once that initial first kind of, a couple of weeks go by, people kind of overlook it. So I think there can be a lot of good opportunity there to revisit those properties, and be able to come in and negotiate. As long as, of course, the sellers are a little bit more flexible with that. Sometimes they might just be a little stuck on their price, and there's nothing we can do about that. But and then if there are some pretty heavy price reductions, that usually signals that there's some motivated sellers, which is great. You always want to be looking out for that. And kind of the new versus the resale market. I think there's opportunities for both, and I like both, particularly for first time home buyers. There's the GST rebates, which is available. And I think that can be super great to take advantage of well, just especially because it is only applicable to first time home buyers. So I also think Kevin's going to speak a little bit more about that. I think I saw in his slides. Um, and it just kind of depends on the location in the city right now. So some communities still are moving really fast, as Aaron was saying. Some are slowing down. So depending on where you know want to buy, you're either going to have to be a little bit more quick with looking at these properties, putting in offers, or if you pick an area that just so happens to be a little bit slower, that's even better. But not always the case, and so you just kind of
Mhm.
each community is going to be a little bit different. So yeah, depending on what you pick.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you, Josh.
Yeah, of course.
Um, I just wanted to add a couple things before Kevin starts, just quickly. So, the fees for us to represent you as a realtor are 99.9% of the time paid by the seller. So if you're a buyer, you're not paying our fees. I've had one instance in my entire career of hundreds of transactions where there was no seller offering a fee, and it was because it was a foreclosure deal. So use a realtor's experience to your benefit. It doesn't cost you anything. A realtor that you hire and that you engage into an agreement with has a fiduciary duty to act in your best interest. So that is really important. And there's just a lot of pieces here that you don't know. You don't know what you don't know, right? And so using our experience, using a professional realtor's experience will always benefit you. And there'll just be things there's still things hundreds of transactions later that come up that I've never seen. So, how can you, doing your very first deal, know what to expect? So, we're here in your corner. We're here to support you. It doesn't cost you anything. Um, and it's only going to benefit you. And realtors like us have also all the professionals that you need, like Kevin here this evening, and good lawyers and home inspectors, contractors, all those things that you might not quite have. So use our team or whoever you choose to work with to benefit you in what you're trying to do. So just thought I would share that. But with that, I'm really excited to hear Kevin speak this evening. Thank you so much, Josh. That was great. And Kevin Tessier is going to give us a kind of mortgage process and update and some things we need to know as first-time homebuyers. So I will turn it over to you, Kevin. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Natasha. So yes, like Natasha said, my name is Kevin Tessier. I'm apologize if I sound kind of stuffed up or if I cough. I've been pretty congested today. But Natasha, you can probably skip one slide. I wanted to start the presentation today with kind of my app So if you guys want to take a snapshot of the little square at the top, otherwise, after this call, I can always send it to anyone who wants it. Um, this will download my mortgage app. And what's really fun about that app is it lets you run numbers. So, you'll be able to see a very, very quick pre-qualification tool, but you can also kind of use the mortgage calculator, which I find super useful to, you know, you're thinking of buying a property, you want to know how much it's going to cost. There's also things like closing costs. So it's going to go over which province. Obviously, most people here, I think, are in Alberta, but it has all the provinces in Canada and will calculate a rough estimate of closing costs. So I think this app is really useful for anyone who's thinking of buying a house, just so that you can kind of run your numbers and have an idea of what you're looking at.
That's great.
Um, but yeah, just to finish introducing myself, I work with Mortgage Excellence. I'm a mortgage broker. I am Andrea's, she's my better half, so I don't know what that makes me, but I'm Andrea's husband. So we've been also investing in real estate since 2018, so that's kind of our backstory. But Natasha, you can skip one slide here. So, what to know when working with a mortgage broker? So, basically, what a mortgage broker does is I have access to all the banks, the monolines, the credit unions, all at once. So, basically, I'm shopping around for you to see what the best options are. So, typically, what a monoline is, just very briefly, it's essentially like a bank. So, they will have very good rates, but all they do is mortgages. So they are very, very competitive in the insured mortgage space. So the insured mortgage is anything with less than 20% down, which oftentimes first-time home buyers fall into that categories. Uh, Monolines are most often than not more competitive than banks, and you can only access monolines through mortgage brokers. Broker services, kind of like a realtor, are 99.9% of the time free for the purchaser. The lender pays our fees essentially. Uh, so when you work with a mortgage broker, what that looks like is we'll give you a pre-approval. The pre-approval can be as quickly as 24 hours to 30 days, depending on your situation. If we're missing some paperwork, it can take up to 1 to 2 weeks. So it's important to start early. But Natasha, you can probably skip to the next page. So what will lenders look at? Um, Typically, they'll look at employment. If you are a salaried employee, so that means you get a T4 on an annual basis, what we need for the banks in general is fairly simple. It's a letter of employment that states your salary, that you're guaranteed employed, and your last two pay stubs. Sometimes we will need T4 averages for 2 years, but most of the time, if your letter of employment says guaranteed employment, we can use that. It gets a little bit trickier if you're self-employed or if you own a company. So that's why it's important to start early, is because then we'll need to gather more documents, and there may be some stuff that we need to adjust. One thing that sometimes catches first-time home buyers off guard is the down payment. So banks will want to see 90 days bank statement showing the money for your down payment and where it's coming from. And they don't really like when there's, money changing from one account to the other. So as much as possible, when you're getting ready to put an offer in, you should have your down payment in a savings account, and you should try not to move money around too much, because otherwise we will need 90 days of the bank account where transfers are made and all that. More and more, we're seeing people having gifts from parents or from close family. That is totally fine. We just need a signed gift letter from whoever is giving the gift, stating that it's a full gift and that it's not a loan essentially. But that's also pretty easy to get. Lenders will also need to see your ID. So when we run your pre-approval, we'll collect your ID. And then we look at debts. So we'll look at your credit file. So as a mortgage broker, I will pull your credit. And we'll look at everything that's on there. So car loans, credit cards, student loans, and any other obligations. So not the case for first-time home buyers, but when people have more than one properties, we have to add all that together. Um, and basically, what lenders look at is there's two ratios. So the GDS ratio, which is the percentage of income going to the housing costs. So basically, what that is you would take your annual salary and you would divide it by 12. So let's say if you make $60,000 a year, you take that divided by 12, that gives you a number. And then you would take your monthly mortgage cost, your taxes, and the heat only. So that's important caveat is it's not your entire utility bill, it's the heat. So for most houses, lenders usually take that as $150 a month. So you take all those costs, the maximum number that you can have is 39%. I usually suggest trying to stay within the 37, 38 because then that gives us a little bit of flexibility. TDS ratio, so that's where basically it's the same numbers that gets calculated, but that's where car loans, credit cards, student loans, and any other payment you have will be factored in. So that's where, having multiple credit cards, some car loans, that's where things like that can really affect how much you can qualify for. But in a nutshell, that's pretty much all that the lenders will look at. So if your file is pretty straightforward, you're two self-employed, you're two normally employed people, we can usually get you a pre-approval within a day or two, and then you're good to go shopping with Natasha and Andrea's group.
Um, just maybe clarify insured financing.
Yeah. So insured financing is there's three insurers in Canada, but the one that most people are familiar with is CMHC. So anything that is below 20% down payment will be considered insured financing. Anything that is above 80% or above 20% down payment is either insurable or conventional. Um, Insured financing, you would have to pay a insurance premium, which gets added to the mortgage. That premium changes if you're putting 5% down or if you're putting 19% down. As you put more money down, it gets lower. The minimum that you can put down is 5% up to the first 500,000, and then it's 10% for a million to 500,000. So what that means is, let's say you purchase a house for 600,000, you would have to put 5% down for the first 500,000 and then 10% down for the next 100,000.
Yeah.
Insured financing, one thing to point out, is usually the cheapest mortgage rates that you're going to get. Insurable or conventional financing will be a little bit higher mortgage rates.
Awesome. Ooh, this is
So
good.
I'm going to talk a little bit about the different programs that are available specifically for first-time home buyers. So it's funny, I hadn't mentioned I posted a story, but out of the people that joined today, I'm gonna give away a Wealthy Barber book. Um, but we had a call with the author of the book a couple weeks ago, and he called the first time home savings account the love child of the RSP and the TFSA. That's why I put that there.
I like it.
Um, but basically, the first home savings account is bar none, the best program that has ever been for housing or for savings. It's basically the advantage of an RSP and the advantage of a TFSA. So per individual, you can contribute $8,000 per year up to a maximum of $40,000 in a lifetime. Um, when you do the contributions on a yearly basis, you get a tax write-off similar to an RSP. The biggest difference is when you pull it out to buy your first home, you don't have to repay it. So the withdrawals are completely tax-free like a TFSA. So it's kind of the best of both worlds between an RSP and a TFSA. Once you open the account, the unused room carries forward. So let's say you're not planning to buy for another 3 years, go open the account and try to fund it. But if you can't, at least the room grows
Over
as
time.
time passes. One more thing to mention on the first home savings account is, let's say you have not opened the account and you're buying a house this year, you could still open the account, figure out a way to move $8,000 in there. You don't even necessarily need to invest it in anything. You can leave it in the account, use it for your down payment, and it still qualifies for a tax write-off next year's income. So it's really a great account. I think anyone who is a first-time home buyer should be utilizing that account first and then the other programs.
Yeah.
The home buyers plan. So the home buyers plan has been around for longer. It's kind of the program that I used when we first bought our first property. So that one is essentially you are withdrawing from your RSP, and you can withdraw up to 60,000. Again, that's per person. But the downside of the home buyers plan compared to the first time home buyer is that you have to, after once you've bought your property, you have to repay or re-put money into your RSP, and you do not get the deduction a second time. So you do not get the tax write-off a second time. So you just get it the first time, and then as you put money back into your RRSP over the next 15 years, you just do that with after-tax money. Still a great plan, just not as good as the first one. And then there's a couple more things specifically for first-time home buyers. So 30-year amortization is available if you're a first-time home buyer. So typically, up until a couple of years ago, 25-year amortization is kind of the standard. You can now go to 30. What I typically recommend to people is working with a mortgage broker. We can kind of, depending on the lender, most lenders will allow you to prepay your mortgage by a certain amount every year. So let's say you're able to go 25. I would suggest going 30-year amortization, which will reduce your monthly cost a little bit. And then you can use the extra money to prepay your mortgage with that allowance every year. So that allows us, if ever there's a job change or if ever there's something in your life that, you know, you need more money and you can't really pay that extra mortgage amount, you don't have to. Your payments are a little bit lower, so it allows you a little bit more flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing is the first-time home buyer's tax credit. So if you're a first-time home buyer, and that would be per property that is purchased. So if there's one property, two people on title, it would be a maximum tax claim of $10,000. So it's not like each person can claim $10,000. But you can get a tax credit for that. So again, you can go up to $10,000 on when you do your tax return the following year. So that's something to consider and either talk to your accountant or to notice when you're doing your tax filing. And then the last thing is the GST rebate. So on new constructions, obviously there's no GST paid on resale properties, but on new construction, as of this year, you can get a GST rebate for houses up to $1 million if they're used as your principal residence. So that's something substantial for if you're looking at new construction. So just to close out here, the first 2 points, I'll explain them, but then I'll do a little bit of tangent. But the best time to start building equity is now. Time in the market beats timing the market every time. And then keep your lifestyle in check early on. So I feel like some people that are a bit younger that I talk to sometimes think I sound like a broken record because I always say the same thing. But I was running numbers this morning just as kind of an example. But if someone were to invest at 25, when they're 25, if you invest $250 per week at an 8% return and you stop investing at 35, so you invest for 10 years and you stop investing, once you're 65, that grows to just below $2 million. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is and it's possible it doesn't matter how old you are or where you are in life. It just gets trickier the older you get. But if you're, coming out of university and you're just getting your life settled, um, try to live a couple more years as a university student, even if you're not a university student anymore. and try to, it's easy to go get the car, it's easy to get the biggest house you can for your first house, but maybe you can look at your first house having a basement suite or your things like that, and little sacrifices along the way, and try to keep your lifestyle in check. It'll be much easier down the road, and you'll start to see kind of the snowball effect after 4, 5, 6, 7 years of doing things like that. You'll start to see the snowball effects of, okay, well, now I can buy another investment property, or now I've held on to this property for 5 years, I can keep it as a rental and go buy more of my ideal home, let's say. Uh, so it's really important, as much as possible, try to keep your lifestyle as basic as possible so that you can grow your investments. When working with a mortgage broker, whether it's me or anyone else, there's no questions that are too simple. Sometimes I will say things quickly, or say things that in my mind I've been talking about a lot, but you're a first-time home buyer, so there's no questions that are too simple, and I will always take the time to go over them and make sure you understand. And the last point is, whether you're ready today, or you're a year away, or you're 2 years away, I don't think it's ever too early to talk to a mortgage broker and even talk to a realtor, because little things like, if there's something on your credit that needs to be corrected, or if there's employment letters that need to be adjusted, the more time we have, the better we can plan and the better we can adjust things as we go. So, yeah, that's pretty much all I had.
One question here, Kevin.
Yep.
When should I look for a mortgage broker in my home buying process? For instance, is it before or after finding a realtor? I mean, they kind of go hand in
It,
hand, but
I think it should be really either, but if it's after finding a realtor, hopefully it's before going to see houses, because the mortgage broker will be able to tell you what budget
yes.
you should be looking at.
Absolutely. Agreed. And if your realtor's not asking you if you're pre-approved or if you have a mortgage broker, if you spoke to your bank, then that's maybe a signal like the realtor isn't thinking about that either, which is a problem. We want to make sure we're setting you up for success.
Yeah.
Kevin gave some really good tidbits there. I being able to be a first-time home buyer again, like I wish I could be a first-time home buyer again, and while do things differently than I probably did, 20 some years ago, because it is really an excellent opportunity. It can set you up for so many other opportunities in life if you think about this a little bit when you're buying that first home, and some of the things Kevin mentioned, it really sets you up for success in life. And that little bit of sacrifice, trust me, it doesn't get easier to sacrifice the older you get, or a family or whatnot. So doing it maybe when you're a little bit more flexible and younger is the time to do it. So really good advice. Um, and if you are in your home buying process, the other thing I would say too is don't be afraid to share with your mortgage broker like things. If you have a change in jobs coming, you have a mat leave coming, you have, I don't know, something coming that's going to change your picture. Don't hold that back as a secret, because it's going to come up. And the sooner someone like Kevin can deal with it, the better.
Yeah. And just to add to that, Natasha, is the more I know, the better.
Yeah.
But also, I can choose what to say to let's say we're in the process, we're working with a bank or something like that. I can choose what to share and what not to share. So
Yeah.
share everything with me, and then what needs to go to the lender, I will tell them. And what doesn't need to go to the lender, it'll stay at me.
Yeah.
So that
Agree.
sometimes, something changes, but we don't need to make the lender aware. So it'll stay
Yeah.
at me essentially.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's never too much sharing. 100%.
Yeah, and you're on the same team. That's for sure. And then after you have a pre-approval in place, like if you've got your pre-approval, don't change anything in your financial picture if you have the choice. Like don't go lease a boat and not let your broker know, or things like that, right? If you're gonna do that, wait till after you get your home and you're moved in, and then make some changes if you can
Yeah.
avoid it,
The day
right?
you close on the home, then you can go get the boat.
Then you can
Not
go
before.
get, yeah, go get your toy or whatever. Yeah. But you
Yeah.
want to wait. Okay. Awesome. Great. Thank you so much, Kevin.
Thank you.
Is there your information? I guess we'll obviously send this out with the replay, but if you want to put it in the chat there too.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Sean, where are you? There you are.
I'm right, yeah.
Hello. We'll put you on the spotlight. You are spotlighted, Sean.
Yeah, good. Look at that beautiful picture.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for whoever put that in. Um, I'm just going to go ahead and jump into it.
Yeah.
Sean, and I'm with Phipps. I'm so honored to be with the Phipps and Tessier Group, representing them in Canmore. And a caveat, even though it's 2 minutes to 7, we are going to run over time.
We
So
are.
if anybody would like to stay a little bit longer, there's some really good information, especially at the end. It's always at the end. But please stay put. Just looking quickly at the Canmore market. Um, I'm just going to go through a few things here and point out some interesting stats because everybody can read the numbers as they are. The interesting stats for me is that we are at our listings has increased, and now ever since COVID, we have more listings on the market since then at 180 listings. Prior to and or during COVID and just after COVID for a number of years, we were stuck at very limited inventory between 80 and 100 listings, and we're finally getting to see those increases. And there's a number of reasons for those. Another interesting stat there is that in the last 30 to 40 days, we've seen between 20 and 23% of properties reducing their prices or their listings. Once again, is it because they were listed or priced too high in the first place?
Right.
Or is there some other external factors like the global market and the global whatever's happening in the world kind of impacting our market as well a little bit and pushing it into more of a balanced market? Number one in Alberta, well, there's a couple of positives and negatives there, which the negative part is Canmore is in the top three of the most expensive places to live, as well as expensive real estate in Alberta. The good thing about that is it's in the top two, top three of visiting of places within Canada and Alberta to visit. And recently, Airbnb came out with their stats as well, which drives the short-term rental market. It's number 7 in the world
Wow.
on Airbnb for bookings and visited places, and it's even higher than Paris, France. So,
Wow, I didn't
however
know
you
that.
want to read into that for investment opportunities, that is something significant to hold on to.
Mhm.
STR, that is my short abbreviation for short-term rental properties, is still in very high demand, and our inventory is very low at only 18 units, and 4 or 5 of those are pre-construction. And then, of course, the tourism growth. Those two topics alone, I can probably put another hour of a presentation
Mhm.
together. But the tourism growth, we know that in Banff or through Banff alone, we get between 4.5 and 5 million visitors within the Bow Valley. And then, of course, the big driver in the news currently is the high-speed rail train from the airport in Calgary all the way through Cochrane, stop in Canmore, and then into Banff.
Yeah.
I also, before we go, carry on, a big shout out to everybody that has come and joined us tonight. I quickly went through the names, and Ilse, thanks for joining us. And if
Mhm.
anybody wants to ask some questions, please feel free to do it as we go along because there's a lot of different information coming through. On to the next slide. Some key point factors, especially tying into the first-time buyers market and your motivation is what your lifestyle versus investment, and of course then the purpose of your property and the goals that you have set for yourself. Whether you are outside of province, moving to Canmore, whether you're in Canmore downsizing, or whether you just got a new job within the Bow Valley, these are all little factors that plays into your decision making. That's going to play into your financing. We do see different financing options and structures when it comes to residential versus investment properties, caveat STRs, your down payments, as Kevin mentioned, your down payment, which is different than your deposit. Your down payment for investment properties are much higher. We see typically on a residential zone property between around about the 5%, but for your STRs, normally it starts at 20%. Another thing to mention is to who do I approach when it comes to financing? Once again, much different when on the residential part, you have a lot more options when it comes to lenders, whether it's A lenders or B lenders. But when it comes to investment properties and short-term rental properties, I strongly advise all my clients to look local. There's only 3 banks or 3 lenders in Canmore that will look at or finance short-term rentals. Happy to share that information if you send us a note. But even within those groups of banks, CIBC, TD, and BMO, if you go outside of the province with those banks, it'll be tougher within them. Stay local, stay with Canmore agents within those lenders. The foreign investors, we know that there's still a ban on the foreign investors or foreign buyers. This could mean a good thing for us as Canadians, that it still makes it affordable for us to purchase into beautiful towns like Canmore. It's also a good omen for me to tell my buyers, this is the time now, if you can, purchase where you want and where you can and where your goals are, especially in Canmore, because the ban is not always going to be there. What's going to happen when the ban gets lifted? Will we see a boom? Will prices increase? And how can I take advantage of that boom when it does get lifted? Another few key points that's been hitting the news lately is the livability tax, which we're going to touch base in more detail, and of course, the different zonings and the implications of that as well. Moving on to that livability tax, what it is and how it works. If we can go to the next slide. Now, the livability tax, we know that Alberta as a province doesn't have that, but it has opened the door for municipalities to implement it for themselves. The livability tax or vacancy tax has been postponed a couple of times, and it's just been delayed in court cases, but has finally been hit the market for the taxable season of 2026. How does it work? Let me read this verbatim, and the Town of Canmore website has a lot of really, really great information. It says here, homes that aren't occupied by a permanent resident for at least 183 days per year, including at least 60 days in a row, will be taxed at approximately 0.4% of the property value. And that's how it works. It is based on your assessed value. It is at 0.4%, and it's for any unoccupied residents within those parameters of 183 days per year and 60 days consecutively. There are some good news. This is exempt from any Alberta resident purchasing a property in Canmore, regardless of that occupancy specifications. Something a lot of people are asking me is how it's applied. It's only applied to residential zone properties and not short-term rental properties. Good news for any investor wanting to purchase. And if there's any silver lining to paying taxes or extra taxes, the silver lining is that it's 0.4%. It's less than other cities in Canada. Looking at some statistics, Vancouver and Toronto is paying 3% on vacancy tax. And Ottawa actually has a graduated structure of 1 to 5%, meaning that it's 1% in the first year and then increases 1% every year that it's unoccupied or vacant. Moving on to some zoning, I'm just going to quickly touch on the zonings. This ties into anybody purchasing new properties, whether it's your first time, second time, or third. You have to know a little bit more of the zoning and the purpose of your property that you're buying. Our two major zonings are residential and then zonings as visitor accommodation for short-term rental properties. One of the biggest implications on that is property taxes. Short-term rental properties are taxed on property values more than double than residential values. And then, of course, the visitor accommodation zoning, we can just pull it out in two different zonings that we work with in the short-term market is hotel, more commonly known as hotel condos, and tourist homes. Tourist home zoning, quickly to explain that, is the easiest way is the residential tax and the hotel condo tax, residential zoning and the hotel condo zoning combined in a flexible zoning. Just to defer or differentiate between those two zonings is that hotel condo for short-term rental zoning is to a maximum of 28 days that you can stay in a property or rent the property out. And then tourist home with the flexibility zoning gives you more flexible, where you can use the property as either your primary residence, long-term rental, or short-term rental. Tourist home, is becoming, any questions on that, different zonings? Anybody there? Just put up your hand or just chirp in. I just want to go back to the then and now of tourist homes. It is becoming a little bit of a golden nugget as a zoning in Canmore. The reason for it is that it is gonna disappear. Back in the day, you could flip-flop between your zoning. One year you could do residential and pay lesser taxes. The next year you could declare your property as a short-term rental and pay a little bit of higher tax. The town is doing away with that flip-flopping. No more new developments will have the zoning for tourist homes. Everybody that has the tourist home zoning is grandfathered in. The difference in that is each owner that has a zoning with tourist home is paying the commercial taxes, is paying the higher taxes on properties, on your property value. Now, with the livability tax, the town has incorporated a declaration. By December 31st of each year, you have to declare the purpose of your property. And when it comes to tourist home zoning, even though you pay the commercial taxes, you can actually declare your home as a primary residence. You can keep paying those taxes, which will benefit in resale value. But if you decide you want to pay less taxes or the residential tax and save money on that, you'll never be able to go back to the ability of renting it out short term anymore, which you need to take in consideration on the resale value, because the value of that property with a short term rental ability will be a lot more on resale than a tourist home that is residential. And then we're going to move on to some opportunities in Canmore. Of course, there's always something happening, whether it's new developments in short-term rentals or in residential, and then, of course, neighborhoods reshaping and a new facelifts, basically. In older parts of Canmore, like South Canmore, large, where bungalows are being bought up and then redeveloped into fourplexes. And of course, we are seeing some more short-term rental developments, like the one showed there, Grizzly Ridge, Ascent, Cascade. Other new neighborhoods that's developing is up at Three Sisters at the Gateway with Logal Homes. That they are building residential zoned condominium buildings, four of them, plus townhomes. If you are looking to move or wanting residential condominiums, that is really, really priced perfectly as an entry level in Canmore. Just to give you an example, a three-bedroom condo top floor unit under 1.1 million, which for Canmore standards is phenomenal. If you haven't been to the show suite, I invite you, or reach out to me. Let's go together. Let me set up an appointment for you. Or when you walk in there, just mention my name. One of the agents, Lauren, she's phenomenal and just will show you everything and the new developments moving forward within the gateway. Other opportunities are assignments for those that's out there of new buyers or new home buyers that doesn't know the term assignments. It's basically somebody that purchased in a pre-construction, has gone through the due diligence, has waived conditions, and now a few months prior to possession has put in a position where they can't close. The builder has purchased that property back from them at a lesser rate and now has brought it back to the market or is opening it up back to the market again. I have a few of those that is not privy to the open market that I know in the short-term rental buildings, a few assignments. If anybody's interested, please reach out through our platform, and we can discuss some details, three-bedroom unit, four-bedroom units, in a short-term rental property. They are ranging between $1.3 and $2 million, depending on which level of the building you're at and where you are facing. Of course, pocket listings. I always have pocket listings, whether it's in Spring Creek, the most sought after neighborhood in town. I'm working on a few listings as well within Solara. Anybody knows Solara, or whether it's townhomes on a residential platform or zoning, please reach out. I'm happy to share some of those tourist homes that's in Spring Creek that is not coming to the market yet. New developments in Deadman's Flats. We know by history how well Sparrowhawk has been doing on an investment and resale value, and your properties that's been increasing in that. I also know of a few owners that wants to sell in that development before they go to market. Once again, please reach out. Other new developments in Deadman's Flats is all in the short-term rental market. We have this Summit. It's about 160 units. Cliff Resorts, around about 80 to 100 units. And then through the Phipps group, Phipps and Tessier group, we have exclusive floor plans and pricing for the new Yamnaska suites in Lodge that's going to be built in Deadman's Flats that is not public yet. So if you want that information, once again, you can reach out to us through that. And then, of course, there's always alternative options, whether it is through REITs, real estate investment funds like Wealth Share. There's opportunities in Canmore as well through part ownership or fractional ownership. One of those opportunities is a single family home zoned for short-term rentals, a Serenity Point, and those passive investment options starting at $100,000. And we're looking, or they are projecting to have an ROI of 15 to 23% after the first year. If you're looking into a passive play and wanting to invest into Canmore and you don't you just can't reach it in full ownership. I have a lot more information and investors landing page that we can share some extra information. I do believe that's I am going to wrap it up. Once again,
Mhm.
some takeaways here. The vacancy tax, make sure that if you do own a property that you know that you have to declare your property at December 31st each year within the town of Canmore. If you want to purchase or invest, doesn't matter where in Canmore, there's so many micro markets and micro neighborhoods. Know the area, know the market, ask your realtor or engage in a realtor that can give you those comparables and insights, different opportunities, whether it's investment or your first time. And of course, then the zonings, know the zonings and be prepared for your financing. As Kevin and Josh has pointed out, when it comes to financing, make your offer to purchase a little bit more enticing and a little bit more inviting by being prepared in your finance. Don't do your finance condition by 10, 14, or 21 days. Start early, make it attractive to make that condition 4, 5, 6 days. Have a letter intent or have something from the bank, and you almost guaranteed to get that offer signed, sealed, and delivered. Any questions? Please reach out. I'm your Canmore connection. Signing off, Sean.
Thanks, John. I think we need to get that little snippet from your
Yeah.
Canva connection. I like it. It's not fair when Sean makes slides, like the photos are always just so beautiful. It's just like so stunning out there. Really appreciate yeah, you sharing with us tonight. Sean, what's going on in Canmore? I feel like Canmore really has it is like in a league of its own. It's its own animal out there. And yeah, we're lucky to have you on the team. Okay, I'm just going to go to our last slide here. I know we obviously did go over time. We try hard not to, but oftentimes that can happen. So if you are watching the recording as well, though, we're here to help, and please follow us on Instagram, and you can go to our website. Our website now, you can actually look for properties on there. You can look around, go right to the same data we get, and take a look around and see what kind of property you might be interested in. If you are a first-time home buyer, getting organized, building your team. We're all here to help you and on your side. And ideally, we're not here to sell you a home. We are here to start your home investing journey with us. We really can help set you up for success that way. And one thing that I wanted to highlight that we didn't quite talk about with Kevin was as a first-time home buyer too, when you go to speak to your broker, they'll do a pre-approval, but oftentimes buyers don't know that if they buy something that has a legal suite in it, that will change your pre-approval number. So I've seen many instances where people think they can only buy a townhouse, but no, actually we can get pre-approved for a, semi-detached property with a legal basement suite because of that rental income. And now you have a perfectly turnkey property for you to move out of in maybe 2 years or whatever the time is. And now you're building your portfolio. And even just one property over the course of your lifetime will make a substantial difference on your retirement plans, maybe early retirement, and also just options in life. My favorite thing about real estate is the options it provides, and life is a roller coaster. You never know what's coming, but time and time again, having more options is a good thing, and it gives you that extra layer of security that something you can bank on should things change in life. So making a couple smart choices at the very beginning of your home buying journey is worthwhile. So I just want to thank everybody who presented this evening. There was a lot of excellent information, and we are here to help. Let us know how we can help you and get you connected with the right people who can help you on your home buying journey. And we are here to help. I'm just going to see if there's any questions. Nope. just some thank yous. Great presentation, very informative. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming. And I think we'll leave it there. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.